Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 514. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the internationally acclaimed and celebrated comic book writer and owner of Die Bold Comics, John Holland. John, how's it going?
It's going wonderful. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really well. And this is exciting.
Before we get going, you've done over 500 of these?
Yeah.
Whoa. When you said 500 and something, I was like, holy.
Yeah. See, no, it's it's been a blast doing this. So I started it in pre-COVID. So now we're looking at like 6 years or so doing this. So it's been it's so fun. I get to meet great people like John Holland of Die Bold Comics.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I know. So the few times you were on, we basically talked mostly about a lot of your work already, and this is kind of exciting because we've talked about A Girl and Her Dog, we've talked about Ayla, Speaker for the Dead, we've talked a lot about your Lizards comics, and we've talked about Alma, which I had a great time. That conversation we had about that one as well. And so this time, though, you're here to talk a little bit about a digital collection of all of your comics, correct?
Yes. I decided, I kind of noticed, when I did my last Kickstarter for Alma, and then even some of the Kickstarters I've been looking at, that a lot of the Kickstarters, almost 20 to 30% of their pledges are digital. So it's got me thinking. So I decided to try. What I'm doing is pretty much everything I've done. I've got about, I think, 14, 15 comics, a couple trades, and then I did some bundles, and everything is digital. So there is no print. There is no, if you pledge and buy something at the end of the campaign, there's no waiting for the book to be printed. There's no waiting for the book to be shipped. As quick as I can push a button and send it to you in an email, you will get your book. All these books are 100% done. So there's, you don't have to wait for anything to get done. And it's kind of an experiment. I don't think, it's going to do, like $10,000 or something. Cause digital, I'm only charging $5 for each digital version of the book, $10 for the trade, and, anywhere from 15 to 17 for the, for some of the bundles. So you get some really good prices on these things. Some of the books, like Alma is a 48-page book, you can get for $5. Snapshots is, I think, 64 pages, $5. So for $5 you're getting a really good deal, I think. And it's you get it right away. It's digital. You don't have to wait.
Right. And I remember I read Robot Sex. I have the PDF of that. That was a really, really good series. When are we getting more of that?
Hopefully soon. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to do this, so I can raise some money, so I can start paying some of these artists, so I can start doing more work. And Roman, who's the artist on it, his prices have went up, which understandably, everything else has went up. So, I want Roman to continue to do it because I love his art on it, but I need to get a little bit more money so I can pay him. I'm hoping, my goal for this is $600. So this will be a help, because right now I've been working on a book called Akimi, and we've done 2 issues and we're working on the 3rd issue of it. And I've been paying that out of my credit card, and that only can go so far before I need to start paying that back.
Yeah, no, that's true. Now, so talk to us a little bit about, so the system that you're utilizing here, it's not Kickstarter. It's called Zoop. Can you want to explain a little bit about Zoop?
Yeah, it's I'm not sure who started it. It's been around for at least a few years, because I remember coming across it at a convention I went to. It may have even been around for more like 4 or 5 years. But it's just another new crowdfunding site that I've noticed some of the some fairly big names in comics have used. I've seen it, uh, make some pretty good uh, campaigns. So I figured I'd try and see what it did. I'm kind of on a kick to see what else is out there besides Kickstarter. I did a Fund My Comics, which is another crowdfunding site, last month, which did not do very well.
Hmm.
So I figured Zoop, and then I'm working my way back to Kickstarter, but I'd like to see if there's any other sites out there that there's that you can actually use and make some money off of, just instead of just Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah. And so, so you, as you mentioned too, is Akimi, which is your newest project. Uh,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Akimi.
Akimi is, we've got the first two issues done. Akimi is a 16-year-old girl. She flees Japan from her father, who was training her to be an assassin from birth. So she comes to America, gets involved in this organization that's run by a nun. That basically, it's an organization of young girls that the nun runs to fight demons and monsters. It was it was kind of inspired by Ben Dunn's Warrior Nun from
Okay.
Antarctica.
Yeah.
It's nothing like Warrior Nun, except for the fact that she's a nun and fights monsters, I think. uh, Ben had talked. I've done some work for Ben at Antarctica Press. He's published some of my stuff, and he was talking about bringing back Warrior Nun, or not Warrior Nun itself, because he sold that to a TV network, I think to Netflix. But
Okay.
he wanted to bring something similar to it back, and it kind of got me thinking about something, and which ended up becoming Akimi. So Akimi's one of I really like it. Akimi is a fun comic. It's the artist is Jorge Gabeto, and I love his art in it. He's just the art in it is just amazing. He does the pencils, inks, colors, and letters. He does everything.
Wow.
Uh, so yeah, and he's the cool thing is he's really fast. We just started this project like at the beginning of the year, and we're already into issue 3.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so we're hoping to do at least 4 issues. So then we'll have like the first 4 issues will kind of tell us an story arc. So then we could go back and collect that in a trade, and then move on to the next 4 issues. But it's been going really well. We haven't run. Akimi was actually what I ran the Fund My Comic campaign for, and it didn't do very well. So in this one, I'm putting it up as a digital version, but I am going
Okay.
back probably next, or probably in June, because we're still in April. Probably in June we'll do either a Indiegogo or a Kickstarter for Akimi for print. And I think we're going to do is do the first 2 issues on it. We'll do like you can buy issue 1 or 2, or you can buy the 2 of them combined in a bundle as a print comic. I haven't decided if I'm going to try Indiegogo or if we're just going to go right back to Kickstarter.
Okay. Yeah, and I know Indiegogo. People have had success with Indiegogo before.
Yeah, Indiegogo's outside of Kickstarter. That's probably the next biggest, I think, the biggest crowdfunding site that I know of. And so it's kind of, like I said, I've been experimenting with them, so I may just try that to see how that one does. And I think we'll do a lot better. Fund My Comics. I'm not going to say whose fault it was on that. It's not a bigger site. Maybe Akimi just didn't catch the right people on Fund My Comics. Maybe I
Right.
didn't push it hard enough, but whatever happened, it didn't succeed. So we're moving on and trying something else. Last year was kind of a slow year for me. I didn't do a whole lot of stuff. I didn't really write a lot of stuff, didn't publish a lot of stuff, and then didn't do any crowdfunding. So this year I'm really trying to ramp that up and get some more stuff out. I'm working on Akimi. I'm working on a second issue of 2 Tons of Fun with Larry Gidry, which we should have that
Okay.
out
Yeah.
in the summer. And I've got a few other things in the works too. I'd like to get back to Robot Sex. I want to finish that. That's one of my most fun comics. I really enjoyed writing that comic, and I liked Roman's art in it. I also signed a contract with Source Point Press. I can never say that fast. To finish Alma. They only print trades right now. They don't do single issues. So we're going to finish up Alma as a trade, which would have ended up being like about 3 issues, about 100 and something pages, and we're going to put it out as a trade. That won't be out until probably next year because Hernan has gotten very popular since he's worked with me, understandably, because he's a very good artist. But he's doing work for IDW and some of these other indie publishers, and he's under contract to, for the next few months, and he's been gracious enough to try to work me into his schedule to finish Alma, but he's probably not going to be able to start it till the end of the year, and then we're going to try to get that out so we can have it published next year through SourcePoint.
So it's amazing too, because what you do, John, is you're able to find really good artists, and then they become famous after you use them.
Yes. In fact, I think my most famous find, and it really wasn't my find, was when I first started to break in. I worked with Sam Keith,
Oh
and
wow!
yeah, Sam Keith and I were trying to break in together. I mean, he was in California and I was here, but I remember, at the time we were on the phone almost every night. We came up with some stories. In fact, one of these books, the Snapshots book, is a collection of short stories that I had published back in the 80s through like Kitchen Sink and some other publishers. And that's got probably 4 or 5 Sam Keith stories in there that he drew for me.
Wow.
Uh, but we started working. Then he became Sam Keith. He became like really famous and started getting a lot of work. So but
Yeah.
Sam was a really nice guy. And so yeah, you're right. I start working with some really great artists, and then they get famous.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. Now, for those that are here at the Zoop site, and we'll put a link in the show notes for this, is give people a little bit of background, a little bit on what they can probably look at here. And for those that are watching the video, we're scrolling through, and some of these you won some awards with too, right?
Yeah, A Girl and Her Dog was when it came out. Jenny Blake, who was formerly known as Tony Isabella, who created Black Lightning for DC Comics, called A Girl and Her Dog one of the best comics of the year it came out. So that's a very it's a story between a girl and her dog and a relationship between a person and their pet, and it's one of my favorite stories I think I ever wrote. It's just a one and done, finished. It's one of the best things I think I ever wrote. I'm very proud of that story. Kimi, we just talked about. Diebold Diebold is where I got the name of the my company from, but originally it was a comic book, Diebold Comics. And talking about Sam Keith, he originally did the cover for the Diebold when it came out back in the 90s. We came out, the artist and I self-published it back in the 90s. And he did the cover, and then we had Mike Zeck, who was a Marvel artist, do a cover for it also. So Diebold is just a humorous. It's Ed the Talking Head. He's lost his body, but he ain't dead. And it's the first issue is a search for his body. It's just a really hilarious, I think, funny comic. And the title, when I was looking for a title for for my company, that title just kind of jumped out at me. Kind of split it apart, made it 2 words. Diebold, and just kind of was a cool title, I thought.
Right.
Uh,
Joe Bushkin
is if anybody remembers Hunter S. Thompson, the writer for Rolling Stone, and did a lot of other stuff. Plus, the movie. What was I think they made 2 movies based on his work.
right.
A lot of people
Where the Buffalo Roam was
yes,
with Bill Murray, but then Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was with
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember Hunter S. Thompson so much, but Joe Bushkin is what if Hunter S. Thompson retired, moved to Florida, and became a Republican? So it's another book that leans more on the comedy side than the serious side. But
Right.
I was a big fan of Hunter S. Thompson. A lot of his work, especially his books about the election and things like that. I read through those and was a very big fan. And then this character, the design for it was Ron Wilbur came up with it. Ron was my artist on Lizards, and when we first started working together, he just sent me a bunch of art, and one of the pictures he sent me was this pig, this human with a pig face, dressed as like with a Hawaiian T-shirt, the shorts, the sandals, kind of like the ugly American or that tourist that you don't want to have to deal with, and it just I could not put that image out of my mind. I just kept trying to think of something. What can I do with that? And I came up with the idea of Joe Bushkin, which I don't remember where I got the name from. I had to have seen it somewhere, but Joe Bushkin is actually a real person. He was a jazz pianist back in the
Huh.
50s. That I didn't know that until after, we were using the name, and I was like, "Oh, okay." At least he's not around, so he can't get upset that I'm using his name for a character with a pig face.
And the Getaway Driver, I don't remember talking to you about that one.
That is my crime novel. It's basically a story about a getaway driver. She's like the best getaway driver in the city. They do a crime, and it's kind of like her coming to terms. She's basically all her life is just doing the driving and her work. And in this story, she kind of starts actually making a friend and coming out of it. That was a story that it started. It is a one and done issue, but it's originally was going to be 24 pages. And when I started writing it, I realized it was going to go longer than it should. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to do 2 issues with it or one. I ended up doing one issue, and it's 32 pages, which is one of the
Wow.
advantages of being my own publisher, because I can make this book any amount of pages as I want. I don't have to say, oh, it's 24 pages, so now I'm going to have to stretch it out to 48 if I want to continue it, or cut
Right.
it short if I need to make it 48. 32 pages told the story that I wanted to tell, so it worked out perfect.
Cool. And Alma is basically like, so what if Buffy was a 72-year-old grandmother? Yeah,
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about Robot
Very
Sex,
much
which
sex.
is probably, yeah, one of my favorite John Holland series. And Lizards. Now, remind people about Lizards. That was one of your first stuff that you did back in the 90s, correct?
Yes, Lizards was. Uh, I had two stories back in the 90s. It was mostly like in short story collections. My first two stories that saw print was the first. They saw print the same month, so they're kind of a tie. One was a short story that was in the back of Journey, which was a comic by Bill Loebs that Fantagraphics printed it, that was publishing, and
Okay.
that actually was a story that Sam Keith drew the art for. Now, Lizards
Okay.
Lizards actually has a connection to Sam too, because Lizards was a something that he and I were working on, and we had created the characters, and then Sam started getting more work and went off to work for Marvel and do all his wonderful work. So I took Lizards and kind of took my part of what I can put in it, and because if Sam had stayed with it, Lizards would have been a completely different series. We were looking at a completely different type of storyline. But Lizards is kind of like just it's one of my quieter stories or series. It's basically just families. It's the main characters are just a group of family of lizards, and it's just the interaction between the dad and the son and the sister, and things like that. Now, one of the main character in the that you can see with the shades on is his name is Dweezil. Now that
Huh.
name came from Sam Keith, and I had no idea Dweezil was Frank Zappa's son.
Oh.
Uh, Sam was a really big Frank Zappa fan, and honestly I wasn't really that big a fan of Frank Zappa. I didn't know that much about him, and it wasn't until years later after the book had came out, because this was before Dweezil started doing MTV and getting a certain level of fame, and I had no idea that Dweez, that's where the name came from. Sam had come up with the name, and I kept it. And it's based on Frank Zappa's son.
Lizards is good, and I know you were talked a little bit about 2 tons of fury
Fury,
last
yeah,
time you were on.
yeah,
But life during wartime, I don't remember
yeah.
that.
I don't know if we had talked about that or not. That's my most political books that I've written. Uh, when I bring them out to shows and stuff, and people they'll ask me, what's that about? Because the covers are very striking. The covers jump out at you, and people will say, well, what's that about? And I always tell them, it just depends on which side of the political line that you land on if you'll like the book or not. I'll just say I'm a very liberal, very person. So that's where the side of the first issue basically concerns a woman's right to of choice, and the second
Yeah.
issue talks about freedom of the press.
Hmm.
So that was another something I was going to continue. I actually wrote the first one before Roe v. Wade was overturned. Wrote it like back in the
Wow.
day when it looked like it was going to, and at the time I didn't think it would happen, but we put it out, and the plan was to do some more, but it's like I sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, and this is one of those instances. I got 2 issues. I may do some more, but I have other books like one like robot sex. I would rather go back to before I finish before I go back to this series.
Right. And voodoo. That brief history of voodoo. That's kind of like more of your like one of your edutainment things.
Yeah, it's more. It's pretty much nonfiction, a brief history of voodoo. I ended up putting two. It's not it's in prose with just illustrations, but I did put 2 comic stories in there about Marie Laveau in it just to make it to make the book bigger. I think it ended up being like 48 or 54 pages or something.
Okay. All right. And Harry Harrison Death World. That I don't remember us talking about that one either.
That was based on Harry Harrison was a science fiction writer that was big in the 70s and 80s or 60s and 70s, and he wrote Death World. He actually wrote 3 Death World novels, and I actually adapted it for Adventure Comics back in the 80s, which was a imprint of Malibu Comics. And I did all 3 of them, but I just reprinted. I just basically reprinted the first one so far.
Okay. And I know you were on when we talked about Isla, Speaker of the Dead,
Yes,
last
that's the
time you were
trade.
on.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
collects the first 4 issues into trade for it.
And then you have the bundles. Then you have that. Then you're able to have bundles. So my question to you is that you have a $17 bundle, a 13, and like two $17 bundles, two $13 bundles, and one $15 bundle. And uh, you don't have a bundle for everything though. I mean, I was wondering if you were gonna make one that has like your entire library all in one bundle.
That probably would have been a good idea. No, I didn't do that. Yeah, I probably should have did that for like everything, and then you get like a discount if you wanted to get everything. Yeah, I tried to
Right.
keep.
Yeah.
I did the 2 trades. Death World and Ayla for 15. I tried to do some few bundles. I didn't know how well the bundles would do or not. So
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Now, so listen. Then I guess my next question for you then, John, uh, is there a link if people want to go to this, to go to Zoop? How are they going to find? How are they going to find the link to this?
Zoop is if you go to zoop.gg, that'll bring you to Zoop.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah.
And then they can, and then they just look for Diebold Comics.
Diebold Comics Digital Library. I
Yep.
put the link in the chat, but it's pretty easy. Zoop isn't like they're nowhere near as big as Kickstarter or anything. So I think if you get to the Zoop, you can pretty much find the campaign pretty easily.
Say for instance, somebody listens to this podcast a year from now, and they're like, "Oh, darn it, I completely missed it. I missed all of it. I want to look at getting some of John's books." Can they go to dieboldcomic.com
I
and
I don't have I have a Substack and I have a buy me a coffee site which I have my basically like a comic shop set up on.
oh,
So you can
cool.
buy all of it there. You can all I also offer on Global Comics. I have a site on there too, so you can buy everything digitally there.
Okay.
But
All
so
right.
yeah, I have the the buy me a coffee or buy a coffee, whatever it's buy me a coffee. Yeah,
Yeah.
is is like basically that's the shop now. And then I started a Substack about a year or so ago, and that's been working out better than a lot of the other because I've tried everything. I had a Patreon at one time, and some reason I just couldn't get it to work. I had,
Right.
you know, a website, I've had all this, but the Substack seems to be working for me. I keep it updated a lot. I do a lot of writing on it. You know, comic wise, I've put some of the comics on there for free where you could read them. I also do other writing. I did basically some writing about Katrina on there recently because we just had the 20th anniversary of Katrina, and I live right outside of New Orleans. And I went through Katrina, and at the time I was doing a blog, and I actually blogged every day about what how things were going in the city. Well, not in the city, I was across the lake, but where I was living, you know, from the hurricane, and I just kind of republished all those blog posts on my Substack.
Well, John, don't be a stranger, man. This was good.
Yes, I will probably be hitting you up again. And like I said, probably June, I'll be doing a Kimi. Like I said, I
Okay.
haven't done a crowdfunder in a while, and now I'm just like knocking them out one after another.
Yeah.
So, the next one is Takimi, and that's the one I'm hoping that will do pretty well, and we'll have two issues of it. I think, Jorge's art is really awesome. I like the story. I think it's going to be a cool comic.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, John.
Well, thank you for having me, especially at the last minute.